60% of Gen Z's calories now come from foods engineered for profit, not nutrition. 1/3 start their day with sugar-loaded coffee, and nearly half hit up fast food 3 times a week or more. But this is not about lack of willpower. It is the world they have inherited. What is really driving Gen Z toward a low-energy NPC mode existence? And how did their daily routine become a health trap? In the United States, the majority of calories eaten by Gen Z now come from foods designed and manufactured in labs and factories, not kitchens or farms. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 2025 nutrition dataset, ultra-processed foods account for 60% of the average daily intake for people aged 18 to 25. These products go far beyond simple packaged snacks. Think shelf-stable meals, energy bars, frozen entrees, and snacks with ingredient lists that read like chemistry experiments. The shift is not subtle. In just 2 decades, the share of calories from ultra-processed foods has overtaken every other food group among young adults, pushing fresh produce, whole grains, and home-cooked meals to the margins of the modern diet. The dominance of these engineered foods is not accidental. Food companies invest billions in research to create products that are cheap to make, easy to store, and irresistible to eat. The result is a food environment where convenience trumps nutrition at every turn. Dr. Sarah Johnson, a nutrition researcher at Johns Hopkins University, describes the effect. She says ultra-processed foods are engineered to be addictive. They are cheap, convenient, and everywhere, especially on college campuses and in delivery apps. This is not just about the occasional bag of chips. It is about a daily routine where nearly everything eaten, breakfast bars, packaged sandwiches, frozen pizzas, snack cakes, and even some yogurts, falls into the ultra-processed category. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention data shows that for Gen Z, the average meal is more likely to come from a box, a bag, or a delivery than from a stove or a salad bowl. Even foods marketed as healthy, like protein bars or plant-based nuggets, are often ultra-processed at their core. The sheer scale of exposure is staggering. 60% of all calories, day after day, year after year. This is not a fringe phenomenon. It is the new normal. For many young adults, the idea of a meal built from single-ingredient foods is the exception, not the rule. The consequences extend beyond weight gain or blood sugar spikes. Studies link ultra-processed diets to higher rates of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and even depression. The food system has quietly shifted, and Gen Z finds itself at the center of an experiment with no clear end date. The next step is to see how this engineered diet plays out in the daily lives of real people, like Maya, a college sophomore navigating campus life one processed snack at a time. Maya's alarm rings at 7:30, but she is already scrolling through her phone, checking class group chats and TikTok. Breakfast is whatever's fastest. A protein bar from a box on her desk, washed down with an iced caramel latte she grabbed from the campus cafe. She is not alone in this habit. 35% of Gen Z now start their day with a sugary coffee drink, a number that has doubled since 2015. The drink clocks in at over 300 calories before she has even thought about lunch. By noon, Maya is back in line, this time at a fast food counter just steps from her lecture hall. The lunch rush is a blur of students ordering chicken sandwiches, fries, and sodas, all bundled in meal deals that promise maximum convenience. 4 out of 10 young adults eat fast food at least 3 times a week. For Maya, it is the norm. The line moves quickly, and she is out the door in under 5 minutes, meal in hand, barely noticing the salad bar tucked away in the corner. Afternoons blur into evenings, fueled by snacks from vending machines and another coffee run before her late lab. Maya's friends swap stories about new menu hacks and TikTok-inspired drinks, comparing notes on which spots offer the best loyalty rewards. The choices are endless, but most revolve around the same core: high-calorie, ultra-processed, and easy to eat on the go. A recent survey found that more than a third of Gen Z consume at least one sugary coffee drink every day, and nearly half rely on fast food or takeout several times a week. Dinner is a group text away. Someone suggests burgers, and within minutes, an app order is placed. The meal arrives at Maya's dorm before she has finished her homework. No need to cook, no need to leave the building. Her fridge holds little more than condiments and bottled water. The food is hot, filling, and above all, effortless. Maya's day is a loop of frictionless choices, each one shaped by what is close, cheap, and easy. It is a routine that has become second nature for millions of young adults. The numbers do not just live in spreadsheets, they play out in every line at the coffee shop, every tap on a delivery app, every skipped grocery run. For Maya and her generation, convenience is not just a preference, It is the foundation of daily life. Liam is 23, works remotely, and lives in a mid-rise apartment on the edge of a city where rent is just barely affordable. His phone buzzes at noon, a DoorDash push notification promising $5 off burgers and fries. He scrolls through the app, eyes landing on the most popular combo: cheeseburger, loaded fries, and a soda. The app highlights the deal, suggests adding a dessert, and with one more tap, his order is in. The total calorie count for this single meal hovers around 1,400 calories, but the app never mentions it. For Liam, this is not a splurge, it is routine. He's part of a much larger pattern. DoorDash's aggregated data shows that 70% of Gen Z users order delivery at least once a week. Nearly a third use these apps every single day. The average meal ordered through these platforms delivers between 1,200 and 1,500 calories, often exceeding half the recommended daily intake for a young adult in just one sitting. Burgers, pizza, fried chicken, and sugary drinks top the list of most ordered items, while salads and grilled options rarely make the algorithm's first page. The numbers are driven not only by hunger, but by design. Delivery apps use recommendation engines to push high-calorie, ultra-processed foods to the top of the feed. The app suggests people also added fries and a shake, making it easy to build a meal that rivals a day's worth of calories. For Liam, the process is seamless. Open the app, tap a few times, and wait. There is no need to check the fridge, plan a meal, or even leave the apartment. The convenience is addictive, and the calories add up fast. This behavior is not limited to late nights or special occasions. For millions of Gen Z users, delivery apps have become the default for lunch, dinner, and even snacks. The result is a steady, frictionless surplus of energy, calories consumed with almost no physical effort. Each order is another step away from home cooking and another notch up in daily caloric intake. As delivery dependence grows, so does the gap between energy in and energy out, setting the stage for a generation living in a constant state of excess. Anna lives with 2 roommates in a sprawling apartment complex on the edge of a mid-sized city. Her rent eats up half her paycheck, and the trade-off is distance, because affordable housing means living far from the walkable neighborhoods she grew up in. Each morning, she heads to her car for the 45-minute commute to work. The nearest bus stop is a mile away, and sidewalks end at the corner. Like 65% of Gen Z, Anna's daily life is shaped by car dependence. The numbers tell a quiet story of movement lost. Smartwatch data from 2025 shows that young adults average just 4,500 steps per day, a steep drop from the 6,000 steps recorded in 2015. Only 1 in 5 Gen Zers meets the CDC recommendation of 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. For Anna, most days are a cycle of sitting, in the car, at her desk, and again on the drive home. Grocery trips mean driving to a big box store on weekends, and errands are bundled to save gas. Even social plans revolve around parking availability and traffic patterns. Energy balance tilts further out of reach when movement becomes optional. In car-centric suburbs and exurbs, daily routines are engineered for efficiency, not activity. The Urban Institute's latest report highlights that the average Gen Z commuter now spends 45 minutes or more behind the wheel each day. That is time once spent walking to transit, biking to class, or running errands on foot. The loss is not just measured in steps, but in all the small bursts of movement that used to fill the gaps between destinations. Anna's story is echoed in millions of young adults spread across the country. Housing costs push them farther out. Zoning laws prevent new apartments near job centers, and public transit is often out of reach. The result is a generation that sits more and moves less, not by choice, but by design. The energy consumed from food and drinks now far outpaces the energy burned through daily life. For Anna and her peers, the built environment quietly shapes their bodies as much as their routines, setting up a silent imbalance that no amount of weekend gym visits can fully correct. On college campuses across the country, the dining experience is shaped long before students ever set foot in the cafeteria. 8 out of 10 universities now hold exclusive contracts with global food service giants like Compass Group and Sodexo. These agreements set the rules for what ends up on the menu, often locking out local vendors and fresh food suppliers. The result is a system where processed foods dominate the offerings, and only 1 in 10 campus menus meets basic USDA dietary guidelines. For students, the choices feel endless: pizza stations, burger bars, grab-and-go snacks. But the real variety is an illusion. Procurement studies show that the same handful of corporate suppliers control most of what is served, from frozen entrees to bottled drinks. Behind the scenes, universities are under pressure to comply with contract terms that prioritize cost and consistency over nutrition. Cafeteria managers are required to hit purchasing quotas for specific brands and products, making it nearly impossible to introduce healthier or more diverse options. The consequences reach beyond the dining hall. These institutional contracts shape habits at a critical age, reinforcing the idea that convenience and processed foods are the default. For many students, the experience of campus dining becomes their first taste of independent food choice, and it is a choice engineered by corporate interests. In 2023, frustration boiled over at a large state university when students discovered that their meal plans could not be used at the only fresh food vendor on campus. The administration cited contract restrictions. Within weeks, a petition demanding healthier, more transparent dining options gathered over 5,000 signatures. Among the organizers was Kai, a junior majoring in public health. Kai's activism was not just about menu choices. It was about the right to access real food in a place where students spend most of their waking hours. The protest drew attention to a growing sense of powerlessness. Students argued that their tuition dollars were funding a system designed to keep costs low at the expense of long-term health. The university's response was to promise a review of the contract at the next renewal cycle, a process that could take years. Meanwhile, the status quo held firm. Processed foods remained the backbone of campus dining, and the habits formed here would follow students long after graduation. The institutional food environment, invisible yet pervasive, quietly set the terms for a generation's health trajectory. Jordan is 24, working 2 part-time jobs and picking up gig shifts whenever he can. Last fall, after weeks of feeling tired and thirsty all the time, he finally went to urgent care. The diagnosis was prediabetes, a wake-up call he never expected at his age. The doctor handed him a stack of pamphlets and a bill for $1,800 just for the initial visit and blood work. Insurance covered less than half. Over the next 6 months, Jordan's out-of-pocket costs for follow-up appointments, medication, and nutrition counseling climbed to nearly $4,500. With rent and groceries already stretching his budget, he started skipping appointments and rationing medication. Dr. Nicole Stelter, Director of Behavioral Health at Blue Shield of California, says 40% of young adults are delaying or avoiding care because they just cannot afford it. We are seeing people make impossible choices between their health and their bills. Jordan's story is not rare. A recent KFF survey found that 2 out of 5 Gen Z adults have put off medical care due to cost. For those managing diet-related conditions like prediabetes, high blood pressure, or obesity, the average annual out-of-pocket expense ranges from $3,000 to $6,000. These are not just abstract numbers. They represent real trade-offs: skipping preventive care, ignoring early symptoms, or relying on urgent care for crises. For many, the financial strain means living with chronic symptoms, hoping things do not get worse. The costs do not stop at the individual. The CDC projects that by 2035, half of all Gen Z adults will be overweight, or obesity will affect a large share of the generation. This forecast carries enormous implications, not just for personal health, but for the entire healthcare system. Rising rates of chronic illness mean more young people will need ongoing treatment, driving up insurance premiums and public health spending. The economic burden of obesity-related conditions, already estimated at over $170 billion annually in the US, is set to climb as this generation ages. Yet, the levers for change are visible. Policy experts point to insurance reform, expanded preventive care, and nutrition support as ways to lower barriers. Others argue for systemic solutions, making healthy food more affordable, investing in walkable neighborhoods, and renegotiating campus dining contracts. Each option requires collective action, not just individual willpower. For Jordan, and millions like him, the question is not whether to take control of their health. It is whether the world around them will make that possible. Right now, nearly 1 in 4 Gen Z adults faces chronic health risks before age 30. As convenience deepens and costs rise, healthy choices slip further out of reach. The environment is not changing on its own. What is at stake is not just physical well-being. It is a generation's ability to shape its own future. The question is, who decides what becomes normal next? Share your thoughts below.